had to be put into a budget somewhere, you know?
I was in a meeting yesterday and that question was asked about the 26 million. I can just tell you that I came in the project last year in October, and that's what the funding was set for. In fact, it was actually for last fiscal year. So what I had to do, it was already obligated for the last fiscal year. So when it broke, when the 3R project moved forward and started working on US 50 and US 6, I had to go back and see if I could re-obligate the 26 million into the following year. So as far as timelines, as explained last fall, NDOT reached their 60%, and unfortunately that 60% occurred after the public meeting. It was determined that it was 40 plus million to construct, and that's what triggered the need for a cost risk assessment value engineering, which basically concurred and said roadway design was right on the money. In fact, it's actually more than what they had estimated. And that's when we realized, you know, we're not getting a firm understanding of how much this really costs. So we went CMAR to hire Q&D to show us. And when we performed our 60% with Q&D on board, they were higher than the CRAVE.
So I guess what I'm driving at is that 26 million several years old. In other words, we've had increases in costs in the last couple of years. And if we don't go ahead with the 26 million that's obligated, it's going to end up 30 million. So that's the one question I was driving at. Is that 2 or 3 years old, that figure?
So I'm Sean Patterson, roadway design. I've been on this project for about 3 years. When we first came in and started working with the city on their water relocations, was about the time that we established probably that 26 million.
So about 3 years old.
Now, we also, since then, of course, the economy is starting to snap back. There's a lot more, and our way that we bid or price projects is with historical data. And so I have a program that I go through and look at different regions of Nevada and the areas that we're doing this work in, and I try to do a cost estimate to the type of work we're doing, the specific bid items that we're using, and past historical data. So usually in a range of about 5 years. And so as you know, about 3 years ago, we were starting to come back out of that recession period, and I would say that, you know, and I think Q&D can probably speak for that as well, but I think that, you know, costs are going up. There's, you know, limited resources because you've got a lot more people back to work, where back at that time, I think your money could go a lot farther.
So as far as the 26 million from the state, there's no, we're not looking for any more from the state. We're hoping the federal government will come in. Is that in the future? Is that what we're doing?
Jay, you can jump in here anytime too. A lot of the state projects that we do use federal funds. You know, we do have our gas tax that we generate from the state, but that pool is not always used on US routes and interstate routes because we can obligate federal funds to the major routes and save a lot of our state funds for those smaller local routes, the state routes in roadways. And so we're using that as an opportunity, making sure that as we design our project, we have to fulfill the federal requirements and make sure that the design of the project is designed to those federal requirements in order to be able to use those federal funds environmentally and other aspects of it. And our federal FHWA will have oversight over those funds, and so we need to make sure that our design is covered in a manner that if we do want to use federal funds, that we're covered and that design meets those needs.
So what is the lead time for federal funds? You know, I know that Congress has these bills, or they can't seem to get together on public works. Is that what, would that money come from there?
So we wouldn't necessarily be going after specific funds. We do get our annual allotment of federal funds that is passed through from the Transportation Acts back in Washington DC. And so we get so much per year, and a lot of times for instance, other states, if they don't use it, there's re-obligations. And so if other states, it's a use or lose it type of concept, and if so other states don't use it, and we have this shovel-ready job sitting on the shelf ready to go, then there's a possibility that we can turn around and say, we have this, we're going back out after reallocation funds, and if we get those, and the state typically gets, and I don't know that you can quote me on the numbers, but I know that it's $20+ million annually that we normally get redistributed from other states that weren't used, that we get to actually bring in and use on federal funds. Now, whether this particular project would meet that need or not is still determined from the front office of NDOT. But
So what we're saying is if we're ready and money comes available, then it could be directed to this project for B.
that's what we're hoping for.
Thank you.
There's a lot of other politics involved in those decisions, but if we're ready, then at least we're fighting. We got a fighting chance.
Thank you.
Seeing nobody else getting up, go.
Mike,
No, I always like.
seniors first, Mike.
I like the politician first.
Hello, I'm Jim Allworth, a city council member. My question probably might be more directed to Q&D. When would we know the influx of the workforce and the amount of workforce? Our housing, rental spaces, some unlimited. When would we have an idea of what kind of workforce and in which, construction, when does it slack off, new forces come in, or is it going to be a steady stream of X amount of them contractors?
So the goal is to go to the February Transportation Board. So when the contract's approved by the Transportation Board, we probably would need 45 days from there, so you could say late March, early April. And we would ramp up pretty quickly to probably 60 people with our subcontractors. And that would go through late October. Depending on, there are some scopes of work we might ramp down and keep working through the winter. And then when weather broke in 2021, we'd ramp back up to that 60 people and
Okay.
finish it out.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff Bean.
I'm Michael Neese, K-N-E-E-S-E. Before I ask any questions, I got to make a statement. I'm one of those who was really on you about the corner up there by McDonald's. And I got to tell you, I am very, very pleased with the way you turned that out. With all of the truck stops and everything else going. I was fearful for our children, and I thank you, gentlemen, for putting it all together. I got to ask you, are the quotes out to bid, or have you got everybody lined up to do the downtown? Are we saying Project B is the downtown area? Okay. Are you out for that?
This is Jay. Can you repeat the question one more time?
Okay, Jay, hang on, here we go.
Thank you.
What I'm asking is, you're stalling off on the downtown area, you're not able to do it for financing, right? Do you have your bids out now for that, or are you holding off?
Right now, what we're doing, quite literally, is we're working with Q&D to reduce the estimate. The downtown corridor is closer to $30 million just by itself, from First Street away to Great Basin Interchange. Now it's plus or minus $1 million or so. We're at 60% design. We're going to get to 100% design. We're going to get to a estimate at 90%, and then we'll have a better ground on what that cost for the downtown corridor will be. Our goal right now is to find ways that we can basically save money through that. As far as going out to bid, we would not, that's a great question. Typically what happens in a construction manager at risk is that the contractor that works with us during pre-construction services has the opportunity to submit us what we call a guaranteed maximum price. It's a fixed price for the contract. They have two chances at this. If the department rejects both of the GMPs, we go out to bid with the plan sets that we have, and we'll find another contractor, and it'll be a traditional method in which we find the lowest qualified contractor, bidder. With that said, this is all based on timing. We have a timeline with Q&D Construction. I believe it's a 1.5-year contract that I have to double check. But with that said, if we get the funding in time, Q&D can offer their guaranteed maximum price, and we have the opportunity to get them on board. If that time elapses, because we haven't acquired the funding yet, this project will go out to bid once funding is identified, and it may be a different contractor.
Okay, now that is with the program that you've already told us about for the last 1.5 years.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have the financing now to do the rest of Project A, the other part of it, right?
Currently, we have $26 million for Package A, which means that we're moving forward with that. I do want to make a statement because the city brought this to our attention. One of the complications to this project is that we're also installing city infrastructure in terms of their water and sewer. Depending upon which section we're doing, either NDOT pays for it because it's a conflict and they have the what we call prior right, or they have the property rights in which if we ask them to move, we have to pay for it. When we look at the downtown corridor, I believe all of the utility relocates for the city is going to be on this project's dime. We're going to have to pay for it. When we look at East Altman has what we call a betterment. It's where it's not there. We are installing facilities that is new and not needed. It's not based on the conflict of our design, but on a need that they want to improve their system. So when we look at Package A, we will be able to increase the 26 million to the estimated amount in which we know will get reimbursed by the city.
Okay, so the water problems that we've got presently with flooding and everything else, to put it over there to the creek, you have the financing set up for that now. That's your next part of your project. I knew this was going to happen.
So that, if I understand Sean Patterson, roadway design, if I understand your question correctly, the flooding issues that we currently have, and Derek can correct me if I'm wrong, the box culvert is the major storm drain upgrade, and that is included in that downtown corridor.
That was my question.
And so that would be included in Package B.
That's all I had. Because that is one of the most important parts of A before you go to B, is it not?
It is, so the outfall portion that is included in A, which is off, the off system is from, I showed in the slide, it goes from the White Pine Museum down adjacent to the railroad tracks, out past the railroad museum, out
Down
into
to
the
the creek.
field down through there. So typically when we design and build drainage structures, we have to build it from the bottom up, or you're taking a risk of building a bigger capacity system upstream that the lower stream can't take, and then
won't
the
be able to
flooding is
handle.
actually worse.
Right.
So yes,
We'll be back to the 1940s when we were real high on water.
right. So yes, so the outfall portion of the ultimate drainage is, at this point, is included in Package A. And then at that point, once we get to Package B, we'll be able to do the upgrades on the storm drain system in the downtown corridor. And when those are wrapped up, then overall FEMA impacts should be reduced.
All right, let me ask one more question. You're the project manager.
Design
You're
coordinator.
gonna have this done by summer's end.
The plans,
What we've just been discussing up to that point, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Shane Bybee, I'm a White Pine County Commissioner, and a little matter of disclosure. I am also a property owner on Great Basin Boulevard. My family has 3 of the 4 corners there at Great Basin and Campton. We have the Copper Queen. And, but what my question is this etched in stone, or is it too late for us to rethink revisiting the downtown first? This community for years has banked what we figured was going to be our economic stabilization on getting this old downtown revitalized. And since you made the announcement of this project, there's been a lot of effort to realize that. There's been a lot of investment. There's been a lot of people investing in property. There's been a lot of public money put into the Main Street USA program. And I just was curious if this would be, if we as a community could bring something to the table to maybe assist to change the course and get the downtown first.
This is Jay Pullen, Project Management. That is a fair question. Understand, I can't stress enough. All of our key designers ask the same question. And we work with, I was referencing Q&D Construction, but one of the things we also do is we hire a consultant. We call them ICE, they're the independent cost estimator. They're there as a third party to verify, basically to keep Q&D honest. Not like we need to, but that's what they're there for. They challenge Q&D every turn in terms of workforce, production side. So with that said, all 3 of us came to the same conclusion because we did not want to provide the city, it would be very disagreeable for us if we said, we're gonna work on the downtown area with the 20 million. And to be quite honest, we'd build it and you'd look at it going, what did you do? And it's because we've lost the integrity and the concept and all the inspiration that the city came up with and partnered with the department on what they'd like that downtown corridor to look like. We would not be able to achieve it. And the reason for it, as I mentioned it before, landscape and aesthetics at most is $3 million. I would have to cut over 10 million to stay within the limits of the downtown corridor, which means after we've let you know that there's no trees, there's no irrigation, there's no beautiful medallions, as John mentioned, that shows the historic cultural significance of this community. I still wouldn't be able to put enough sidewalk. I still wouldn't be able to put the adequate box culvert in. And that was the challenge. And to get more, I mean, it was desperate. We got very desperate on how can we still do the downtown area, and let me show you what we came up with. Is you do the outfall area because that's just engineering sense. I mean, we'd be irresponsible not to do that. That ties into Ogden. I can't start from First and move out. No, I gotta start at Ogden, where we made the improvements, and go as far west as I can. And I wouldn't even make it to the school. And that was a concern to me. And not only that, part of this was a complete streets of a road diet and reducing the lane. That requires a transition period. You have to have a transitional area to change from 4 to 2. I mean, it got really bad to where we would be spending more money on something that when we came back on package 2 that we would have to rip out to put in, and I didn't want to waste the money. I wanted to make sure that when we put in the 26 million, it was something that wasn't going to change. And that was the overall, I mean, I go back to the 10 goals of this project. One of them is the revitalization of the downtown corridor. I have not forgotten that. That's why it was very disappointing to us when we had to make this decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to come up and make a statement? Hearing none, okay, we'll go ahead. Oh, we've got one.
Lori Carson, I'm also a White Pine County Commissioner. It's Lauriecarson. Gentlemen, I met some of you last night. I guess I'm still reeling from the fact that we were all caught with our pants down with knowing the amount that we yet have to come up with. So we're talking close to $30 million still to finish the downtown area. 20.
Jay Pullen, gotta remember to do this, Jay Pullen, project management. What we're working with right now is 60% estimates of the entire project that we acquired from our ICE team and Q&D Construction as our CMAR contractor. And with the estimate, downtown corridor by itself is closer to 30 million. That's not including the outfall area. And with that said, yes, the second package would be somewhere around 30 million. Now that's not including, however, how far I can get on East Alton. Assuming I can get to 10th Street and Q&D comes up with, they're constantly providing good ideas for us in terms of how we can save 100,000 a year. We also have to include what's remaining on East, which may, if I can make it to 10th Street, it would cover 10th to 15th.
Okay, thank you, Jay. With that said, and not to throw anybody under the bus, but I heard a statement yesterday that approximately a year ago, individuals were already aware that it was $40,000 or $40 million at $40 million. So with that said, I feel like we could have been in the process of looking at other grants through the FAST Act, if there was any transportation monies available, other avenues to add to this. Communication, we talked about this yesterday. My point is to get this on the record. Somewhere, somehow, the ball got dropped that our community was not aware and should have been aware, something that even if you said that it was only 3 years, we feel like it was more 10 years, this $26 million figure was put out there. So even at 3 years, obviously, common sense tells us that we know that there's going to be an increase. So I feel like that you should let both the city and the county know that we were going to not have sufficient funds. I would like to correct that in some way, that we are kept more abreast of those funds that are needed, and somebody should be designated to have that communication when there's something like this going on. Because as was stated yesterday, look what this has done to our community, our students, in regards to the broadband that was supposed to be put in here. This affects so many things. GoEd, they contributed to the Main Street. USDA committed funds to the Main Street. There's a lot of people that have gotten involved with this for our community, for our students. And I just really dissatisfied that this late into the game, and I know that you said 3 weeks ago, you know, that this had come up, but I can't help but feel common sense tells you when you're in business and you do service work, that you know that you've got to have an idea going down the road so you don't have this kind of a knee-jerk reaction that we've all ended up having, like, okay, now what do we do? How are we going to fix the fallout? Because this is just like dominoes and it's trickling downhill. Anyhow, that's all. I just more wanted to make a comment. I heard a lot of it yesterday, and I hope I wasn't too disrespectful. But like I say, it just hit me out of the blue, especially when I hear that there's a hearing officer, which we were not prepared for. I thought this was going to be a Main Street Station meeting. So with that said, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Laurie. And again, no, you were not disrespectful in the last meeting. I do want to bring up the point that you have very valid points regarding notification. We could do better in terms of how can we get the message out. I think what it comes down to is we didn't know. And we didn't want to basically get out information that was incorrect. And unfortunately, we were in a transition period. You have a different governor, you have a different transportation board. we've had a slew of upper management retirements. I was given a task, and that task was, we realized last year through roadway design, Sean's team realized that we were 40+ million, and it wasn't what the budgeted amount was. And my task bringing on board is, you figure out how to work with a contractor and drop that cost somewhere around 50 million. And we break this into 2 phases so we don't slow down the project, but we still have to come up with the additional package B funding. And at that point, I could say that and scare people about whether or not it may not happen, but we didn't know. And as I mentioned before, I wanted to do the downtown corridor first, so when I looked at that, I was like, I have 2 options. One is the best option, in my opinion, because we want to see this built, is we're going to do the downtown corridor, plus we're going to do the outfall area. I need $40 million. And then they're going, how much do you have now? And I go, 26. But I need something, I need that to be able to do it right. And so what ended up happening at that point is I was then given direction about what the budget was going to be a week and a half ago, which was, we got to work with what we have. And so what we're going to do is we're going to defer it because we need the full amount to be able to do downtown corridor.
And Jay, Lori Carson again, I don't mean to shoot the messenger, but somewhere there's a void that NDOT, I feel like, kind of let us down. Where that lands, I don't know. But we're team players here. We want to fix this. We want to work together. But we can't do that sometimes if we don't know what we're going to be faced with. So I would like to, in the future, know what's coming down the road as best that we possibly can, so that we can plan. We all understand, you know, how business works. When I say business, I know that government, I mean, I've been in the private field, and now I'm in the public. But, so I have an understanding when it comes to funds and finance. And boy, I really struggle when I don't know what's coming down the road. And it impacts me and how I'm going to be able to do my job, whether in private or public. So that's where I kind of struggle as an entity, a state entity, that there wasn't some way that we could have found this out sooner. You guys found it out sooner, or however. But I just feel like that there needs to be something in place with the state agency that is working with the community so that we are like a cooperating agency, so that we have some idea.
Thank you. Jay Pullen, Project Management. Yes, you know, in fact, we had discussions after that meeting regarding how could NDOT do better in terms of reallocate resources to be able to have that public relations ability. So that's something that we can pursue outside of this meeting. Another thing that we're going to do is, I took the blame for it because it's absolutely true. I am the project manager. It's my responsibility to coordinate with other agencies and stakeholders and interest groups. And I dropped the ball on how I should have been able to let that information, how to release that information. And now that we've had this meeting yesterday in regards to the needs for the city and the county, I believe that I'm not going to make that mistake twice. So the way I look at it is I will admit fault to that, and from this point forward, I will make sure that you're kept in the loop, and also the mayor.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Donna Bath, D-O-N-N-A-B-A-T-H. I work for NNRDA. I represent White Pine County and Eureka County with economic development, and I'm on various boards. I'm sorry, I'm emotional. First of all, I wanted to say publicly thank you, Steve. We appreciate your partnership. You've been great to work with. Steve painted our sign